I know a lot of people on here like to post creepy encounters, but I never thought I'd be one of them. Until now. I debated for weeks whether or not to share this because I honestly still don't understand what happened, and thinking about it messes with my head. But the fear I felt that night was too real to ignore, and I can't shake the feeling that if I hadn't trusted my instincts at the exact right moment, I probably wouldn't be here to type this. Let me start by saying, I'm a pretty average guy, 26 years old. I live alone in a studio apartment in Chicago. Safe neighborhood, decent rent, quiet neighbors. Nothing sketchy ever really happens around here. I work remotely, so I don't go out much unless it's for errands or a quick coffee run. I wouldn't call myself paranoid or anything, but I'm definitely not the type to go looking for trouble. This happened about 6 months ago, around mid-November. It was a Wednesday night, and I remember that specifically because I was prepping to work late and realized I was out of coffee and oat milk. I figured I'd do a quick grocery run before the nearby 24-hour store closed their fresh produce section at midnight. It was around 10:45 p.m. when I left my apartment. It was cold, but not freezing yet. That weird in-between weather where you're not sure if a hoodie is enough or if you'll regret not wearing a coat. I tossed on my sweatshirt, headphones around my neck, and decided to walk the 10-minute route instead of calling a rideshare. The streets were dead quiet, not unusual for a weeknight. I remember passing a guy near the intersection just before the store. He looked like a delivery driver, gloves on, thermal jacket, holding 2 pizza boxes. Didn't make eye contact, just walked past me like he was in a hurry. I didn't think twice. Once I got to the store, everything was as normal as it could be. Bright lights, fluorescent buzz, a bored teenage cashier scrolling through his phone. I grabbed my usual oat milk, bananas, cold brew, and a few snacks. I was out in less than 10 minutes. Now here's where it starts to get weird. As I was walking back, same route, same quiet street, I noticed a dark-colored SUV slowly rolling behind me. I assumed at first that it was someone looking for parking, but I kept walking, and the car didn't pass me. It just maintained a slow crawl, maybe 15 feet behind. I didn't panic yet. I just turned down my music and crossed the street casually. The SUV didn't move at first, then slowly turned in the same direction, matching my path again. Still trying not to assume the worst, I changed directions, walked 1 block over, and again. The SUV followed, not speeding, not getting closer, just staying there, as if it didn't want to be noticed, but also didn't want to lose me. At this point, my heart started beating faster. I tried not to show it, but every step felt heavier. I took out my phone and called my best friend, Nate. He didn't answer. I texted him, just in case. "Hey, someone's following me. Might just be nothing, but stay on standby." Just then, the SUV stopped near a dimly lit corner store. A man stepped out, hoodie up, jeans, white sneakers. He didn't say anything, didn't approach me, just stood there, leaning against the car, staring at his phone, or pretending to. I kept walking, took a turn I normally wouldn't. That's when I noticed something that still gives me chills. The guy in the hoodie, he wasn't alone. Another man had gotten out on the other side of the SUV and was slowly walking parallel to me, across the street. Same pace, same calm demeanor. They weren't looking at me directly, but they were syncing their movements like they were trying not to scare me off, like they were hurting me. I had no weapon, no pepper spray, just a bag of groceries and my phone. I ducked into the nearest 24-hour laundromat, glass front, bright lights, 2 old ladies folding clothes and a worker mopping the floor. I pretended like I was meeting someone there, pulled out my phone again and started fake texting. I didn't want to call attention, but I knew I needed to stay visible. I peeked outside through the reflection in the glass door. Both men were now standing together across the street, looking right at the laundromat. One of them pulled out a phone, not to call. He just stared at the screen, then turned it toward me like he was recording or showing something. Something in my gut screamed, "They know where I live." I stayed inside that laundromat for 40 minutes, just pacing, waiting. Eventually they disappeared, or at least I thought they did. I ran the rest of the way home, checking every corner like a maniac. Locked every bolt, slid a chair against the door. Didn't sleep a second that night. The next day I filed a report. Cops didn't take it too seriously. Said I wasn't harmed, nothing stolen. Could have been a misunderstanding, they said. But here's the part that still keeps me awake. 2 days later, I got a notification on my phone from a neighborhood crime app I'd joined months back and forgotten about. Suspicious men posing as rideshare drivers reported on 7th and Fairview. Residents urged to avoid solo night walks. That was exactly where I'd been followed. Same time of night, similar SUV description. No arrests were made. I changed my walking routes. I never go out after 9 p.m. anymore, and I still don't know what their plan was. To rob me, kidnap, worse. All I know is, if I hadn't ducked into that laundromat, I don't think I'd be here telling this story. It's been months, but that night hasn't left me. I'd be lying if I said I moved on. Truth is, I'm more paranoid now than I've ever been in my life. I check my peephole every few hours for no reason. I keep a knife beside my bed. I've even started leaving a light on when I sleep. Something I haven't done since I was a kid. And I still avoid walking outside past sundown, unless it's absolutely necessary. But it's what happened after that night. What I haven't told anyone until now. That truly messed with me. Something that when I try to explain, sounds too calculated to be coincidence. The day after that incident, I worked from home like usual. I tried not to think about the SUV, the two men, the way they mirrored my movements like they were practicing something. But despite the police brushing it off, I knew something wasn't right. I didn't leave the apartment that entire day. I got everything I needed delivered. Every time I heard a car pass outside or footsteps in the hallway, my heart would jump into my throat. That night, around 10:15 p.m., almost the exact time I'd left the night before, I heard a knock. 3 soft knocks. I froze. I wasn't expecting anyone. I hadn't ordered anything. I live alone. The knock wasn't aggressive. It was the kind of knock someone gives when they want you to think they're not a threat. I stayed completely still, heart pounding, didn't even breathe. Then came a second knock, louder, more deliberate. I quietly walked to the door and looked through the peephole. There was no one there. The hallway outside my apartment is short, maybe 10 feet from my door to the stairwell. If someone had knocked and walked away, I would have seen or heard them, but it was dead silent. I stood there staring through the peephole for maybe 2 straight minutes. Nothing. Then my phone buzzed. Unknown number. No caller ID. I stared at the screen, thumb hovering over the decline button. But something in me wanted to hear it, to know if it was them. I answered but didn't speak. For a few seconds, all I could hear was the faint hum of static. Then a voice, distorted, almost robotic, said, "You made the right choice last night, but not everyone gets to." Click. They hung up. I felt like the floor dropped out from under me. My skin went ice cold. My mouth went dry. I immediately blocked the number, called 911, and reported it. The officer I spoke to was more serious this time. maybe because I sounded genuinely shaken. They said they'd send someone by in the morning. I barely slept. Again, around 5 a.m., I finally passed out on the couch. Sunlight had just started to bleed through the blinds when I was startled awake by another sound. Not a knock. This time, it was the creak of the floorboards inside my apartment. I bolted upright. For a second, I thought I was dreaming, but I wasn't. I was fully awake, the kind of alertness that only fear can deliver. I grabbed the knife from the side table and crept toward the kitchen. Nothing. I checked the bathroom, closet, under the bed, empty. Then I turned to the front door. My stomach sank. The door was still locked, but the chair I'd wedged against the knob, it had moved. Not far, just a few inches back, like someone had pushed the door just enough to nudge it aside, then stopped. I thought I was going to throw up. The police came a few hours later. I told them everything, from the SUV to the call to the movement of the chair. They checked the door for signs of tampering. Nothing obvious, they said, but they suggested I install a chain lock and a security camera just in case. They didn't find fingerprints. They didn't take it further, just left me with a stay safe and a half-hearted offer to drive by the building a little more frequently. I installed the camera that day, one of those motion-activated ones that records to your phone. I also bought an extra bolt lock and put a second chair against the door, just to be sure. For about 2 weeks, nothing happened. Then one night, I got an alert on my phone. Motion detected. Front door camera. 2:12 a.m. I was awake. I always was these days. I opened the app and watched the clip. At first, it was just a dark hallway. The timestamp ticked by, then movement. A figure stepped into frame from the stairwell. No sound. Just a tall man in a dark hoodie. He stood right outside my door, looking at it. Not knocking, not moving, just standing there. Then he bent down slowly and pulled something out of his pocket. A piece of paper. He slid it under the door, and then he left. I didn't move. I couldn't. It was like my limbs didn't belong to me anymore. Eventually, after what felt like an hour but was probably only 10 minutes, I crept to the door and looked through the peephole. Empty. I bent down and pulled the note back inside with a coat hanger, not opening the door. There were 4 words written on it. You were supposed to. That was it. I don't know what they meant. I still don't. But that sentence has haunted me every day since. I've shown the footage to the cops. Again. They still couldn't ID the guy. No clear face. No prints on the paper. I thought about leaving, moving, changing cities. But something about that message made me feel like it wouldn't matter. They found me once. And I don't think they're done. I never used to be paranoid. I used to laugh at people who triple-checked their locks or refused to answer unknown calls. Now I am that person, and no one's laughing. After the note was slipped under my door, you were supposed to. I didn't leave my apartment for 3 days. I worked remotely, canceled plans, and ignored calls from friends who thought I was just being flaky. But how do you tell someone that you're being hunted when there's no evidence beyond a chilling voicemail and grainy camera footage? I didn't sleep much those nights. I kept the lights on and sat in the living room with a kitchen knife beside me, watching the door like it might open on its own. On the 4th day, my building's management finally agreed to let me check the security footage from the hallway cams, something they'd originally refused due to privacy policies. I had to threaten legal action. That's when they budged. But when they opened the footage for 2:12 a.m., the exact time my own camera had caught the figure, the hallway camera showed nothing. Literally nothing. No man, no movement, not even a flicker. It was like that entire moment never happened. I showed them the clip from my phone, demanded an explanation. The building manager just stared at it with a frown and said, "It must be some glitch or a prank." But I could tell he was unnerved. His voice was shaking slightly. I left the office with more questions than answers. That night, I made a mistake. I'd run out of food and hadn't eaten all day. Despite my fear, I figured I could make a run to the convenience store around the corner. It was only 2 blocks. I'd go quick, be back in 10 minutes. I left at 11:35 p.m. The streets were quiet, cold, not a single car in sight. I clutched my pepper spray tightly and walked fast, glancing behind me every few steps. Halfway there, I heard it, a slow engine purr. I turned around. That same dark SUV parked at the corner. No headlights, no one visible in the driver's seat. I froze, heart jackhammering in my chest. Then the SUV's lights flicked on, just for a split second, and turned off again. I ran. I made it into the store, panting, sweating, looking like I'd seen a ghost. The clerk, a middle-aged guy named Luis who I'd chatted with before, gave me a concerned look. "You good, man?" I didn't answer. I grabbed a few essentials and rushed to the register. Then I heard it, the bell above the store's door jingling as someone else walked in behind me. I turned to look. It was a man in a black hoodie, same height, same build as the one from my door camera. His face was obscured by the hood, head slightly lowered. He didn't grab anything, didn't speak, just walked past me slowly and stood by the drink coolers. Luis seemed to sense something, too. He narrowed his eyes and subtly leaned forward. "You need a ride home," he whispered. I nodded, barely able to breathe. We made it quick. He bagged my stuff and motioned for me to follow him out the back door instead of the front. The man in the hoodie never moved, never turned, just kept standing there, as if waiting for something or someone. Luis drove me home, told me to be careful, and said I should probably get a weapon or even a dog. I didn't tell him that I already had both, the knife and the paranoia, but they weren't enough. That night, I didn't sleep at all. I sat on my bed, knife in hand, lights on, security cam feed open on my phone. 2:17 a.m., another motion alert. I tapped the notification and watched, already dreading what I'd see. There he was again. Same hoodie, same silence. This time he looked up at the camera. No face, still just the dark shadow of his hood. But he knew it was there. He wanted to be seen. He lifted a gloved hand and pointed straight at the lens. Then he held up a new note. White paper, black marker. He pressed it against the door, directly in view of the camera. It read, "Tomorrow we come in." I called the police again, begged them to send someone, anyone. They said they'd send a patrol in the morning. Not now, not tonight, not when I needed them. I wasn't going to wait. I called an old college friend, Brian, who lived 30 minutes away. He's a big guy, ex-military. I begged him to come over and stay the night. He didn't ask many questions, just said he'd be there in 40. While I waited, I moved everything heavy in front of the door. My couch, my dresser, even the dining table. It looked ridiculous, but I didn't care. Then, at exactly 2:58 a.m., I heard a sound I'll never forget. The lock turning, not knocking, not banging, not picking. The lock turning, like someone had a key. I sprinted to the door and held everything in place. My feet dug into the floor as the doorknob turned, jiggled, then stopped. Then a whisper, barely audible through the door. "You should have stayed out." I screamed, slammed my body against the door, grabbed my phone to call 911 again. This time, I heard a voice on the other end almost immediately. I don't even remember what I said, just begged them to get someone now. 10 minutes passed. No one came. Brian wasn't answering his phone either. 15 minutes, 20, then motion alert. I opened the camera feed. Brian, standing in the hallway, outside my door. His face was pale, confused. I ran to the door, unlocked it, and flung it open. He stepped in quickly, locking it behind him. "You okay, man?" he asked, breathing hard. There was a guy outside the building watching me when I parked. He just walked away into the alley. I told him everything, showed him the footage, the notes, the door, the call, the way the lock turned. He didn't laugh, didn't say I was overreacting, just nodded and said, "We'll stay up. Together." That night, nothing happened. No knocks, no movement. But at 6:15 a.m., when we finally dared to open the door and go out, we found something tucked under the doormat. A key, a single unmarked silver key, and a folded note. The note read, "See you next time. You won't hear us." That's the last time I ever saw or heard from them. I moved 2 weeks later, different city, changed my phone, got a new job. I don't order late-night groceries anymore. I don't walk anywhere after dark. I don't trust anymore. But every time I hear a creak in the floor, or a soft knock at the door, I wonder if they found me again. If they're just watching, waiting, to come in when I don't expect it. Because the scariest part isn't what happened. It's knowing that someone, or some group, targeted me, watched me, followed me, got into my building, and possibly into my apartment. And no one, not the cops, not the cameras, not even me, could stop them. I've never been one to believe in the supernatural or weird Reddit creepypastas. I always rolled my eyes at those kinds of stories, chalking them up to someone's imagination running wild in their mom's basement. But after what happened to me last fall, I don't think I'll ever be the same. I haven't told anyone this, not even my girlfriend, not my best friend, not my therapist. I'm writing it here because I need to get it off my chest. And maybe, just maybe, someone will believe me or warn me if they've seen anything like it. It all started with a stupid hike. I live in a quiet town on the edge of the Pacific Northwest, one of those places where it's gray 80% of the time, and the forest seems to stretch endlessly. I'm not exactly an outdoorsman, but after a nasty breakup and some emotional burnout from work, I figured some alone time in nature might help clear my head. I picked a relatively unknown trail, something not listed on all trails, just a word-of-mouth recommendation from a coworker who said it was peaceful and empty. He wasn't kidding. When I parked my car on the shoulder of the road and stepped into the woods, it was like the world fell silent. No birds, no wind. Just the crunch of my boots on the damp leaves. About 2 miles in, the trail became more of a suggestion, just a slight depression in the underbrush. I probably should have turned back, but something about the stillness was comforting, like the forest had swallowed up all the noise of my life and left me in pure quiet. That's when I saw the phone. It was lying in a patch of moss near the base of a tree. It wasn't hidden or buried, just placed. That's what disturbed me. It looked deliberate, like someone had set it there intentionally for someone else to find. It was an old Samsung model, cracked screen, muddy, but surprisingly intact. Against my better judgment, I picked it up. The battery was dead, so I shoved it into my backpack, thinking I'd charge it later out of curiosity. I didn't really think much of it until I got back to my apartment that night. That's when things started to get strange. After showering and grabbing some food, I plugged the phone into an old charger I still had lying around. It took a few tries, but eventually the screen flickered to life. There was no lock screen, no password, just a cluttered home screen with about 5 or 6 app icons and a wallpaper that made my stomach turn. The image was dark and grainy, but it showed a figure standing in what looked like a forest, the same type of forest I'd just hiked in. The figure was wearing a crude, stitched-together mask, think leather with holes for eyes and mouth, like something a backwoods horror movie villain would wear. The figure was holding something, a bag, maybe, and was partially silhouetted by the flash of the camera, as if the picture had been taken secretly and hastily. I felt an immediate chill down my spine. Still, I told myself it was probably some edgy teenager's art project or prank. I opened the gallery app. It had 34 videos. No photos besides the wallpaper. I should have stopped right there. I should have turned off the phone and dropped it off at the nearest police station. But curiosity is a hell of a drug. I clicked the first video. It was shaky, poorly lit footage of someone walking through the woods at night. You could hear the person breathing heavily, the crunch of twigs underfoot. At one point, the camera turned and caught a glimpse of what I think was the same masked figure from the wallpaper, standing in the distance, just watching. No movement, just standing there like a statue. The second video was more disturbing. This one was during the day. The camera was pointed at a small clearing with a crude wooden structure in the middle, like a shack built from tree branches and tarps. A hand came into frame and slowly peeled back the tarp covering the entrance. Inside were bones, small animal bones, at least I hoped they were, arranged in a sort of pattern. It wasn't random, it looked ritualistic. I watched 5 more videos that night, each one worse than the last. One showed someone, possibly the person holding the camera, burying something heavy in a shallow grave. The audio was warped and glitchy, but I swear I could hear muffled cries. Another was filmed from behind a tree, spying on a group of hikers setting up camp. The final one I watched before forcing myself to stop was only 3 seconds long, but it's the one that still gives me nightmares. It was a close-up of someone's face. A woman, bound and gagged, eyes wide with terror, tears streaming down her cheeks, and then the screen went black. That night, I barely slept. Every creak of the apartment, every distant siren outside made me jolt. I kept the phone in a drawer, but found myself checking on it compulsively like it was radioactive. The next morning, I decided to take it to the police. But when I got to the station, something strange happened. As I was waiting in the lobby, I took the phone out one last time to show the videos. But the gallery was empty. Every single video gone. The wallpaper had changed, too. Now it was just a plain black background. I even checked the storage, 0 gigabytes used in media. It was like the phone had wiped itself. The officer at the desk gave me a polite but skeptical smile and took the phone, saying they'd look into it. But I could tell he thought I was just a bored guy looking for attention. That was 3 months ago. Since then, weird things have been happening. I see the same van parked near my building multiple times a week. No plates. My mailbox was ripped open once and nothing was taken. Just torn up. I keep waking up between 3 and 4 a.m. to the sound of static. Like a TV left on, but I don't own a TV. And sometimes, I think someone's been in my apartment while I'm out. Small things out of place. A spoon in the sink that I didn't use. A faint, muddy footprint just inside the doorway. I tried to tell myself it was all stress, paranoia, leftover nerves from seeing those videos, until last night. Last night, I got an airdrop notification on my phone. I was alone in my apartment, blinds drawn, Wi-Fi off. The notification just said, "Watch this." I declined it immediately, heart pounding, but a minute later it popped up again. Same message. I turned off my phone and didn't sleep the entire night. I don't know who made those videos. I don't know why I was meant to find that phone. But I know this. Someone out there knows I watched them, and they haven't forgotten me. I don't think they ever will. I didn't tell anyone about the airdrop, not even my best friend Dan, who I usually confide everything in. I was too afraid of sounding crazy, and honestly, a part of me wondered if I was going crazy, sleep-deprived, imaginative. Maybe I'd watched those videos and my brain was filling in the rest. But that night shattered whatever doubt I had left about the reality of this situation, because that same airdrop, watch this, came again. Only this time, I accepted it. I don't know what compelled me. Maybe I was too tired to care. Maybe I was hoping that whatever this was, I could end it by confronting it. I turned off Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, everything on my phone except the basic network, and still, the notification appeared. Airdrop. Watch this. No device name, just those 2 words. I accepted. What popped up on my screen made my hands go cold. It was a video, roughly 1 minute and 37 seconds long. Shaky, low light. It showed a shot of a room, small, dimly lit by a single overhead bulb swinging slightly. The room was mine. My apartment. My bedroom, to be exact. The camera angle was from the corner, like it had been placed on top of my bookshelf. I could see my bed, the desk, my coat, hanging on the back of the door. Then the camera zoomed slowly, very slowly, onto the bed. I was in it, sleeping. The footage had no sound, just a low static hum. The zoom continued until my face was completely filling the frame, my mouth slightly open, breathing softly, completely unaware. The video ended there, abruptly, and the file vanished from my phone before I could even save it or try to screenshot it. Gone, as if it had never existed. I checked my room immediately, ripped the shelves apart, pulled out every drawer, flipped the mattress, but there was no camera, no device, nothing. That's when I understood something horrifying. This person had been inside my home, had stood over me, filmed me, possibly more than once. I changed all the locks that day, got a Ring camera installed, bolted windows, even bought one of those motion detector alarms for the hallway. And for the first time since childhood, I started sleeping with the lights on. But paranoia is a funny thing. You think you're being smart, staying alert, preparing for the worst. But your mind always lags behind the true danger. Because while I was focused on my apartment, my phone, the locks, they had already moved past that. They were inside my life. It started subtly. At work, my desktop background changed to a black screen with the words, "We're not done." Everyone thought it was just a prank. IT blamed malware. I didn't argue. How could I? Then Dan stopped answering my messages. No calls, no texts. He was my closest friend, the one person who knew something was off with me lately, even if I didn't give him the full story. After 3 days of silence, I drove to his place. His car was in the driveway. His lights were on. But when I knocked, no one answered. I peeked through the window and saw his living room lamp knocked over. His TV screen was cracked. A pizza box lay open on the floor, still fresh, like someone had left in the middle of dinner. I called 911 anonymously. I didn't know what else to do. But when the cops came, they didn't find anyone. No sign of struggle. Nothing technically illegal or alarming. Dan was just missing. No one else seemed worried. But I knew. He was taken. Just like the people in those videos. The masked figure. The watching. The silence. They were reenacting their twisted rituals with real people now. And I was next. The Ring camera helped me sleep for a few nights. Gave me a false sense of control. But then one morning I checked the app and found 17 motion alerts recorded between 2:13 and 3:02 a.m. I opened the first one. There was nothing, just the hallway, quiet. Second video, same thing. Third, a flicker. Something moved very quickly past the frame, so fast I couldn't tell if it was an insect or something bigger. I paused the video and dragged the timeline bar slowly across each second, and then I saw it. A face, right up against the camera lens. Not a normal face. The same stitched leather mask from the phone wallpaper. Empty black eyes. A slit mouth, stitched shut in an X. The face appeared for a single frame, 1/24th of a second, and then gone. I threw up, literally ran to the sink and vomited, because that meant they were here. Not just once, 17 times in one night, watching, toying with me, knowing I'd find it. I tried calling the police again, told them someone had broken into my home. They came, checked everything, but there was no sign of forced entry, and the footage? Corrupted. Every file had turned into static. The officer actually chuckled and asked if I'd maybe had a little too much Reddit lately. I didn't bother arguing. That night I packed a bag and went to a motel. Just needed space. Somewhere sterile, somewhere without memories or shadows in the corners. I checked in under a fake name, used cash, burner phone, no electronics. The first night was quiet. I didn't sleep, but nothing happened. The second night, though, I heard knocking. Not on the motel room door. From inside the room. It came from the closet. 3 slow knocks. I froze. Stared at the closet door like it was alive. I hadn't opened it since checking in. I hadn't even thought about it. But there it was. A simple wooden door. Slightly ajar now. I grabbed the bedside lamp and yanked open the closet in one motion. Heart pounding in my ears. Nothing. Empty. Except on the floor there was a small square package. Wrapped in red cloth. No tag. No name. Just placed there. Like the phone in the woods. I didn't want to touch it, but I had to know. I unwrapped it. Inside was a stack of photographs. Real photos. Printed. Each one showed me in a different place over the last 2 weeks. On the street, at work, at the grocery store, even inside my apartment. Different angles, different times of day. Some from above, some from behind. And one, the last one, showed me in that exact motel bed, asleep, taken just hours before. Someone had been in the room while I slept. That was the final straw. I drove out of town, didn't tell anyone, left my apartment, my job, everything behind, started couch surfing, never stayed in one place more than a day, got rid of my phone, no social media, nothing that could track me. I thought maybe I'd escaped, but now I'm not so sure. Because just last week, I was sitting in a diner, somewhere out in Montana, when the waitress dropped off my check. On the back, someone had scribbled, "Confession 1, you watched. That means you're next." I never told anyone about the videos, never posted them, never emailed, never uploaded. So how could they know? Unless they're watching me the same way I watched them. And if that's true, if just watching is enough to mark you, then maybe by reading this, you're next too. I don't know where to begin anymore. If you're still reading this, it means you haven't shut this down, haven't dismissed me as some lunatic. And maybe you should have, because I don't think this ends with me. Since I left town, I've been drifting from place to place like a fugitive, except I don't even know who I'm running from. I keep expecting the world to go back to normal, that maybe all this was some psychotic break, or maybe the phone was part of a viral horror campaign, something I could eventually explain. But I've seen too much. I've experienced too much. And now the dreams have started. At first, they were brief, flickers of static in my sleep, then flashes of trees, that same patch of forest where I found the phone, now pitch black, like the roots themselves had swallowed the light. I'd wake up in a cold sweat every time. But last week, I stopped waking up. Not like that. I woke up just not where I fell asleep. Let me explain. I was crashing in an abandoned trailer outside Helena, Montana. No one around for miles. No power. Just a kerosene lamp and some old canned food. It was quiet, safe, perfect. But that night, I dreamed I was back in the forest. Only this time, it was different. It was vivid. Every leaf, every crunch beneath my boots. Even the smell, wet dirt and rotting bark. I wasn't walking, I was being pulled. Something unseen was dragging me forward. My feet moved, but not by choice. Ahead of me, the trees opened to a clearing I'd never seen before. At the center, a massive circle had been carved into the ground, burned into the earth, like someone had scorched it with fire. Symbols I didn't recognize lined the edges. Jagged, looping things that hurt to look at. They didn't just look wrong, they felt wrong, like seeing a dead animal that shouldn't exist. And in the center of the circle stood them, 6 figures, each wearing that same stitched leather mask. None of them moved, just stood there, as if waiting. Their arms were straight down, hands clutching something. I couldn't see what it was at first, until the nearest one stepped forward. In its hands was my face, my actual face, skin peeled cleanly, expression frozen mid-scream. I should have woken up. That's usually when the terror breaks, when you jolt up and realize it was just your brain being cruel. But not this time. I stood there, frozen, while the figure placed the face over its own mask, like trying on a new skin, and when it fit, it tilted its head at me and whispered, "Now you understand." I screamed myself awake, literally. But I wasn't in the trailer. I was standing in the same patch of woods from the dream, dirt under my feet, my clothes damp with morning dew, pine needles in my hair, and worst of all, in my hand was the phone. The same cracked phone from the beginning, the one I'd thrown into the river 6 towns ago. Its screen flickered to life in my palm. No lock screen, just one message. "Welcome back." I dropped it and ran until my legs gave out. I didn't even know where I was. Took me 3 days to hike out and find civilization again. I haven't told anyone this part until now. And when I turned on a borrowed phone to check for news, I found a new Reddit post trending under r/no sleep. Saw this guy on the side of the highway last night. He looked lost. Took this picture and left. Something about him felt wrong. The picture was me, standing alone, staring directly into the camera. But I don't remember that moment. I don't remember ever seeing anyone. So how was I staring into the lens? I tried creating burner Reddit accounts to comment, ask questions, but every account I've made gets banned within an hour. And now, I get messages on every platform I try. You were told not to watch. They're following me. And not just physically. They've burrowed into my mind. Every time I try to sleep, I wake up with blood under my fingernails. Scratches I can't explain. My reflection lags sometimes. I'll look in the mirror and see myself smile before I actually do. Worst of all, I think I've started filming things in my sleep. No joke. Last night, I found a video file on the borrowed phone. I hadn't touched the camera. It was titled Confession 1, Part 3. Just like this post, it showed a family in a park, playing, laughing. The camera was zooming in slowly, shaking. None of them noticed. Then it panned down to show a knife, held in a gloved hand. My hand. I don't remember any of it, but I checked the GPS metadata on the file. The video had been taken 4 hours north, in a town I've never visited. Yet there was a receipt in my pocket this morning. Gas station. Same town. That means either someone is using me, or I'm becoming one of them. Maybe that's the final stage. You find the phone, you watch, you flee. And then you become the next mask, a new predator for the cycle. That would explain the videos, the blurred faces, the shaky footage, the slow zooms. Maybe every victim is just someone who watched until they stopped running and started filming. I think I'm losing time now, big chunks of it. This post, I had to write it 3 times. Each time the file disappeared halfway through. First it froze, then it glitched, then the entire text got replaced with a single word: delete. I'm not even sure this one will upload, but I have to try. I have to warn you, because if you're reading this, if you've read all the way to here, then maybe it's too late for you too. Don't go into the woods. Don't pick up anything that isn't yours. And for God's sake, if you see a cracked phone lying on the ground, don't press play. I don't care if no one believes this. I'm writing it all down because I need proof. Something tangible, in case I disappear next. I've lived in the same apartment building in Portland for 5 years. It's nothing fancy. Thin walls, weird smells in the hallway sometimes, and a rotating door of tenants that rarely stay longer than a year. But it was affordable, and for the most part, quiet, until last month. I live in 308. My neighbor across the hall, Jordan, was in 309. We weren't friends exactly, but we'd chat now and then when we bumped into each other, at the mailboxes, in the elevator. He was the kind of guy who kept to himself, worked in IT, liked indie horror films, harmless. Then he stopped coming out of his apartment. At first, I didn't think much of it. A lot of people work from home now, but after 5 or 6 days with no sign of him, I started to get this feeling, that crawling discomfort, like something isn't quite right, like the silence was too heavy. On day 7, I noticed the smell. I was coming back from a late shift at the bar I work at. It was about 2:30 in the morning. The hallway was dead quiet. But the moment I stepped onto the 3rd floor, I gagged. It was this rank, sour, almost metallic stench. It clung to your clothes and sat on your tongue. I followed it to Jordan's door. It was seeping from the cracks around the frame. I knocked. No answer. I knocked harder, calling out his name. Nothing. I could hear something, though. A faint scratching, almost like nails dragging across wood. It stopped the second I leaned in. I told myself maybe he left something rotting in the kitchen and passed out drunk. Maybe he was sick. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. So I called our building manager, Robert. He lives on site, and though he's mostly useless, I figured he'd have a spare key. When he finally came up, grumbling and still half asleep, I pointed at the door. "You smell that?" I asked. He sniffed and immediately recoiled, pulling his shirt up over his nose. "Jesus," he muttered. "Yeah, I smell it. I think something's wrong," I told him. "He's not answering. I haven't seen him in a week." Robert hesitated. "Legally, I can't just go in without cause." "That smell is cause," I snapped. He sighed, then fumbled through his key ring. When he unlocked the door to 309, I wish I could say I was ready, but nothing could have prepared me for what was inside. The first thing that hit us, worse than the hallway, was the stench. It poured out like a physical wave. Rotten meat, mold, sewage, and something wet and metallic that made my eyes water. The apartment was pitch dark. Robert reached for the light switch, but it didn't work. "I think the power's out," he said. He pulled out his phone and turned on the flashlight. The walls were wrong, discolored, warped. There were huge damp patches like water damage, but they pulsed slightly, like they were breathing. The air was thick, warm and wet like the inside of a mouth. We stepped inside, slowly. "Jordan?" Robert called. No answer. We moved further in. His kitchen looked like it had been ransacked. The drawers open, utensils scattered, food rotting on the counter. A faint trail of dark, sticky fluid led from the kitchen into the living room. And that's where we found the thing. It used to be human, I think. It was collapsed against the far wall, curled in a fetal position, limbs too long and skin blackened like it had been soaked in acid. There were holes in its chest and face. Perfect round holes like something had drilled into it. The flesh around them was chewed, torn. Robert screamed. I stumbled back and knocked over a lamp. The crash startled whatever was in the hallway, because I swear to God, I heard something scuttle across the ceiling above us, fast, like it had too many legs. I looked up and saw a wet trail across the ceiling tiles, ending just above the bathroom door. Robert called 911, hands shaking so bad he dropped his phone twice. I just stood there, staring at what used to be Jordan. That's when I noticed he had no eyes, just empty sockets, packed with something pale and thread-like, like webbing. We got out, waited for the cops downstairs. But when they came and went up with backup, there was nothing in the apartment. No smell, no body, no rotting food, no wet walls. Just a clean, empty apartment with the lights working perfectly and Jordan's furniture gone, as if he'd moved out. They looked at me like I was crazy. Robert, too. He even denied ever going in, said I must have imagined it. But he was there. He screamed. He saw it. I confronted him the next day. He refused to talk about it, just kept saying, "I don't know what you think you saw, but you need to drop it." I didn't. I stayed up that night, watching my peephole. At around 3:12 a.m., I heard it again, scratching. From inside, 3:09. I stared through the peephole, not blinking, and then I saw something move on the other side of the hallway, just for a second. It was tall, humanoid, but wrong. Limbs too long, head slightly tilted, mouth open too wide. It smiled at my door, and then it walked into 3:09. A locked, empty apartment. The door didn't open. It just phased through it. That was 2 nights ago, and last night. I found a note under my door. 3 words, scrawled in something dark and sticky. "You're next. Listen." I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. After I found that note under my door. "You're next. Listen." I sat in the middle of my living room with every light on, phone in hand, kitchen knife on the floor next to me. The note felt damp when I picked it up, like the ink hadn't dried, only it wasn't ink. It had a faint, coppery smell that I couldn't stop sniffing in the back of my throat. Blood. I scanned every inch of my apartment. The doors were locked, the windows latched. I even checked under the bed like a terrified kid. Nothing. But the silence outside wasn't right. It was too quiet, like the whole building was holding its breath. At exactly 3:12 a.m., same time as the night before, I heard it again. Skr-ratch, da tap, 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 coming from the wall I shared with apartment 309. I stood perfectly still, heart pounding so hard, it made my vision pulse. I pressed my ear to the wall. Silence. Then, very faintly, I heard breathing. Wet, heavy, like something massive and inhuman was sucking in air through gills. I backed away, shaking. I didn't sleep. Not that night, not the next one either. I tried telling people. My co-worker at the bar, my cousin, hell, even the guy at the gas station where I get coffee. But every time I started explaining it, the body, the holes, the note, the thing I saw walking into 3:09, their faces just glazed over like I was ranting about some conspiracy theory. They'd say stuff like, "You probably just imagined it. Stress can mess with your head, man. Did you try melatonin? No one believed me. No one but her. 3 nights later, I got a knock at my door around 6 p.m. It was a woman, late 30s, dark circles under her eyes, hair pulled back into a messy bun like she hadn't slept in days. She looked terrified. "You're the guy from 308, right?" she asked. I nodded. "I'm in 306. Can I come in?" I hesitated for a second, then stepped aside. She walked straight to my living room, looked around like she was checking for bugs, then turned to me. "I heard it too," she whispered. "The scratching, the breathing. It started last week." My blood ran cold. "You live right next to him?" I asked. "Yeah," she nodded. "Or I used to live next to him. I haven't heard Jordan in weeks." Then the smell started, and the sounds. Every night, same time. I thought I was losing my mind. She pulled something from her hoodie pocket, a small voice recorder. "I recorded it last night," she said. "Here." She pressed play. At first it was just silence. Then a faint, high-pitched hum started, almost mechanical, but layered with something wet. Then, scrur-ratch, tap, 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 slurp. A voice, not human, whispered something I couldn't make out. Then came the scream. Not hers, not mine, but Jordan's. It was distant, muffled, like it was coming from under 6 feet of soil, but it was him. I sat back, shaking. Why haven't you told anyone?" "I did," she said. "Building manager, police, even my sister. No one remembers Jordan, not his name, not his face. It's like he's been erased." I showed her the note I found. She nodded solemnly. "I got one too." She reached into her other pocket and pulled out a folded, dirty scrap of paper. Same writing, same message. "You're next. Listen." We both sat there in silence for a long time, trying to make sense of it. That's when she told me about the vents. "There's something in the walls," she said. "I think it uses the ductwork to move. That's how it watches us. That's how it gets in." I didn't want to believe it, but I remembered the scratches on the ceiling, the wet trail, the sucking sound. It wasn't living in Jordan's apartment. It was living in the walls. She left just before midnight, promising to meet again the next day. She never showed. I knocked on 306 the next evening. No answer. Called her phone, disconnected. I convinced Robert to open her door. Empty. All her things were gone. No sign she ever lived there. Mailbox empty. Lease voided. No forwarding address. No trace. I went back to my apartment and threw up. Then I made the mistake of opening the vent in my bedroom. Inside, nestled in the duct, was a tooth, a human molar, still bloody at the root, and next to it, a long, pale finger with no nail, wrapped around a cassette tape. I listened to it, static, hissing, then the whisper again. "You're next. Listen." I tried to sleep with the lights on, but when I woke up, they were all off, and I was holding the note in my hand again. New handwriting, same words. "You're next. Listen," I screamed. No one came. I started recording everything. Cameras in the hallway, my bedroom, the vent, anything that might catch it. So far, nothing shows up on video, but I feel it watching me. I've stopped using the bathroom after midnight. The mirror fogs even when no water runs. And twice now, I've seen a silhouette move behind me when I'm brushing my teeth. My cat, Luna, disappeared yesterday. I found her collar in the toilet, still warm. I don't even know why I'm writing this. Maybe if I put it online, it can't erase me like the others. Maybe you'll believe me. Because if you ever hear that scratching in your walls, if your lights flicker at 3:12 a.m., if you find a note that says, "You're next. Listen." Run. Don't sleep. Don't turn off the lights. Don't let it learn your voice. It's been 4 days since Luna disappeared. 4 days since the note showed up again. 4 days since I've slept longer than a few minutes, each time waking in a panic, drenched in sweat and silence. I finally worked up the courage to visit apartment 309 again. I don't even know why. Maybe I thought I could prove to myself it was all in my head. That maybe, just maybe, the noises and disappearances had a logical explanation. I brought my phone with a flashlight on, wore gloves, and brought that same kitchen knife. It was almost midnight, and the hallway smelled wrong, like burnt hair and bleach, like something was rotting and trying to cover itself up with something cleaner. When I reached 309, I noticed something different this time. The number on the door was gone, just peeled off. All that remained was the sticky residue and faint outline of 309 in faded glue. No knocking this time. I picked the lock, something I never thought I'd do, but I'd been watching YouTube tutorials all day, and honestly, I didn't care anymore. Fear had taken a back seat to obsession. The door creaked open like in every horror movie you've ever seen, and what I saw inside, I will never forget. The apartment was empty. I don't mean unfurnished. I mean stripped bare. No appliances, no outlets, no wiring. Just concrete walls and a dark, moist floor. The air was hot and thick, like the inside of a throat. But the worst part? It wasn't the same shape as the other apartments. It was wrong. The layout curved subtly to the right, like a spiral. As I walked further in, I realized there were no windows, no corners. The hallway narrowed, forcing me to crouch, and the walls began to feel soft, pliable, like flesh. The floor gave slightly with every step, like something was pulsing beneath the surface. That's when the smell hit me. A mixture of iron, mildew, and bile. It was so strong, I gagged. I turned a corner, and the spiral ended at a circular chamber with walls lined in what I thought were pipes, until I got closer and realized they were teeth. Thousands of human teeth embedded into the walls, all gnashing silently, grinding in rhythm. And in the center of the room was a chair. No, not a chair. A rib cage, twisted into the shape of a throne. And seated in it was something that made my brain want to tear itself apart, trying to understand it. It was tall, at least 7 feet, completely still. Its skin was translucent, stretched tight over 2 long bones. It had no face, but I could feel it watching me. It smelled like copper and ozone, the same scent that was on the note. It opened its mouth, not in the head, but in the center of its chest, and I saw Jordan's face inside. Stretched, eyes still moving, still blinking, and then another face, the woman from 306, eyes wide, mouth silently screaming. I stumbled backward, dropped my phone, and the flashlight went spinning. I heard it stand up. Its bones cracked like ice underfoot. Then I heard it whisper, not with a voice, but inside my mind. You saw. You know. You're next. I ran. I didn't grab my phone, didn't look back, just ran down that spiraling tunnel that felt like it was closing in behind me. I swear I felt its breath on my neck, its claws scraping the back of my shirt. I burst through the apartment door, slammed it shut, and sprinted to my place. Locked everything, boarded the vents. I haven't left since. That was yesterday. Today, there are scratches on my ceiling. This morning I woke up with 3 long cuts down my thigh, blood soaked into my sheets. No idea how they got there. And just now, I got a voicemail. It was from my number, time-stamped at 3:12 a.m., static for 10 seconds. Then a whisper, "Let me in." Then behind the whisper, I could hear a faint tapping. Skrr, ratch, tap, tap. Right now, as I'm typing this, I hear something moving in the hallway. It's pacing, slowly, back and forth outside my door. The lights are flickering. My power just surged. My laptop battery dropped 40% in a second. I don't know if I'll be able to post this before it gets in. But if you're reading this, please believe me. Check on your neighbors. Listen to your walls. Trust your instincts. And if you ever hear a voice whispering from a vent at 3:12 a.m., don't answer it. Don't speak. And for the love of God, don't listen. I'll begin right away. No build-up, no fluff. Because I need this story out of my head. I'm not even sure why I'm writing it here. Maybe I want someone to tell me I'm crazy. Maybe I want someone to say it's all in my imagination. But deep down, I know what I saw, what I lived through, what I survived. And I swear to God, it wasn't just sleepwalking. This happened 2 years ago. At the time, I was living with my older sister, Kara. We'd both moved to Portland after college, and with rent being insane, we figured a 2-bedroom apartment made more sense than both of us wasting money living separately. Kara was always the responsible one, clean, on time, type A personality to the bone. She was also the one who carried me emotionally after our mom died when I was in high school. She never really dealt with it, just bottled it up and kept moving, while I fell apart. We were close, in that quiet, trauma-bonded sibling way. We never really talked about feelings, but we understood each other's silences. The way she'd check on me during my bad days, the way I'd do her laundry when I knew she was overworked. Our bond was subtle, but deep. I'm saying all this because I want you to understand who Kara was before things got wrong. It started small, stupid even. One night, I heard her in the kitchen at 3:45 a.m. She was opening and closing drawers, not violently, just methodically, like she was looking for something specific. I got out of bed and walked down the hallway. I remember being annoyed more than anything. We both had work in the morning. "Kara?" I mumbled. "Everything okay?" No response. She was standing in front of the sink, in the dark, her back to me, shoulders stiff. "Kara," I said again, louder. Still nothing. I stepped closer and put my hand on her shoulder. She turned around so fast I stumbled backward. Her eyes were open, but glassy, unfocused. Then she tilted her head like a confused dog and said, in a slow, slurred voice I didn't recognize, "Don't touch the knives. They remember." I froze. What did you say?" She blinked, turned back to the sink, and walked back to her room without another word. I stood there for 10 minutes, heart racing. I finally convinced myself she was just sleepwalking. I even Googled it. Turns out people say strange stuff during episodes. Nothing to worry about. But over the next few weeks, it got worse. I started finding her in the living room at night, just standing, always in the same spot, facing the window, whispering to herself. Once, I woke up to the sound of her humming. Not a tune I recognized. It was off-key and uneven, like a broken music box. She started writing things in her sleep, too. I found pages in her handwriting scattered around the apartment. In the bathroom, behind the microwave, once inside my pillowcase. The notes made no sense. Stuff like, "She walks where mirrors fold. Keep your hands behind your teeth. Do not let it see you sleep." At first I thought maybe she was having some kind of psychotic break. I brought it up gently one morning over coffee. "Hey, have you been sleepwalking?" She didn't answer, just stared into her mug. So I tried again. "Kara, you've been doing weird stuff at night, talking, writing things. I'm starting to get scared." She looked up at me, and her eyes were normal, clear, and she whispered, "You should be." Then she got up and left for work. That was the last normal conversation we had. It escalated faster after that. I started locking my bedroom door at night. I set up my phone to record what happened while I slept. One morning I checked the footage. At 2:12 a.m., The doorknob to my room began to jiggle, softly at first, then more violently, then silence, then a whisper right next to the door. "Open it, please. I forgot where I am." But it wasn't Kara's voice. It was deeper, wetter, not human. The next night, I didn't sleep. I stayed awake, lights on, door locked. And around 2:15 a.m., I heard her in the hallway, bare feet shuffling, that same humming. Then she scratched the door, not with fingernails, with something sharper, metallic, like a fork. When I opened the door the next morning, there were 4 thin scratches in the wood, perfectly parallel, about 4 inches long. That day, I begged her to see a doctor. She smiled. That smile wasn't hers. It was too wide, too dry. "Doctors can't fix what's already in," she said. "They only delay the blooming." On the 7th night, I reached my breaking point. She stood at the foot of my bed, just standing there, motionless. I woke up and screamed. I couldn't help it. But she didn't flinch, didn't blink, just stared at me. Then, in a slow, hoarse voice, she said, "Your bones are ripe," and walked out of the room. I moved out the next day, but the story doesn't end there. Because 2 nights ago, I got a voicemail from her. The first I'd heard in months. No words, just the humming, that broken tune. And over it, layered so faintly, I had to use software to isolate the audio. My own voice, saying, "Let her in." I don't remember falling asleep that night. I just remember staring at my phone after playing that voicemail over and over again, trying to convince myself there had to be an explanation. Maybe she found some old recording of me. Maybe it was AI generated. Maybe it was a prank. Maybe it wasn't what it sounded like. But here's the thing, I never said those words. Let her in. Not once in my life. Not in any context. It didn't even sound like something I would say. And yet, it was unmistakably my voice. I sat in my tiny studio apartment, the one I moved into after abandoning Kara, listening to that broken lullaby hum and my own voice whispering that cursed phrase like some dark invitation. Let her in. That night, I didn't sleep. Again. But it wasn't just the voicemail that had me shaking. It was the thought that if she could somehow record me saying something I never said, what else could she do? The next morning, I drove to the old apartment. I hadn't been back since I left, not even to grab my things. I'd paid movers to collect my essentials, and I let the rest go. It just wasn't worth it. But that day, something pulled me back. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe curiosity. Maybe it was the fact that I hadn't heard from Kara in 8 months, and suddenly she was back, humming and all. The building was the same. Red bricks, chipped paint, creaky stairs. The kind of place that always felt colder than it should, even in summer. I knocked on the door. No answer. I knocked again. Harder. Still nothing. So I used the spare key I'd never returned, the one I kept hidden in my car's glove box out of some weird instinct. As soon as I stepped in, I knew something was wrong. The air felt wet. Not humid. Wet. Like I was walking into a room that had recently been underwater. The lights were off. Blinds drawn. It was the middle of the day, but the living room looked like midnight. I stepped inside and called out, "Kara?" No answer. That's when I saw the post-it notes, hundreds of them, stuck to the walls, the ceiling, the furniture, even the TV screen. Each one had the same phrase. "Do not open your mouth when you hear her song." Over and over again. Different pens, different angles. Like she'd written them in a frenzy. Like she'd been trying to remind herself of something absolutely vital. The humming started again. From her bedroom, that broken, staggered lullaby, like a child's music box dipped in rot. I moved slowly down the hall, heart thudding so hard, It drowned out the sound of my own breathing. "Kara," I called again, voice shaking. No answer. I put my hand on the doorknob to her room. It was cold, ice cold. I pushed it open, and there she was, Kara. Sitting on the floor, legs crossed, back to the door. Surrounding her were piles of notebooks, dozens of them, all open, all filled with writing so small and so tight it looked more like static than words. And she was humming, that same tune, over and over. But she wasn't alone. There was something behind her. At first I thought it was a coat rack or a pile of laundry, but it moved. It shifted when I stepped into the room ever so slightly, like a ripple of shadow. "Kara," I whispered. "Hey, what's going on?" She didn't turn around. Instead, she said, "Don't speak." It listens through me now. I froze. Her voice sounded normal, not like the sleepwalking version, not possessed, just tired, worn out, resigned. "Kara, what the hell is happening?" I said. The moment the words left my mouth, I saw her shoulders tense, and from behind her, it moved again. A face, but not a human one, elongated, like it had been stretched. No mouth, but dozens of tiny slits across the skin where lips should have been pulsing like gills. And from those slits, the humming. It was using her voice, mimicking it, layering it. It was her, and not her, all at once. I stumbled backward, hand over my mouth. Kara finally turned to face me. Her eyes were bleeding, thin streams like tears, but dark and syrupy. She smiled, and I recognized it again, that wrong smile, too wide, too dry. "You shouldn't have come back," she said. "She remembers you. She marked you." I ran harder than I've ever run in my life. Down the hallway, through the sticky wet air of the living room, out the front door, down the stairs, into the car. I didn't stop driving for over an hour. I ended up at a cheap motel off of Bur 84, shaking, crying, trying to figure out what the hell was happening. And then my phone buzzed. A new voicemail, no caller ID. I played it. The humming, always the humming. But this time, a new voice layered beneath it, deep, hollow, like it came from inside a tunnel, carved in bone. It said, "You opened your mouth." I started bleeding from my ears the next morning. Not a lot, just a few drops, but enough to make me panic. I went to urgent care. The doctor looked confused. "No trauma, no infection," she said. "You sure you didn't poke anything in there?" I lied and said I might have scratched it with a Q-tip. She gave me antibiotics and sent me home. But I knew better. I hadn't opened my mouth just once. I'd spoken twice, and each time it felt like something inside me cracked a little. I've tried to block it out. I really have. I left Portland, deleted all social media, changed numbers, no contact with Kara, blocked the apartment building's number in case management ever called, burned all her notes and the spare key. But it's not enough. Because last night, I heard humming in the hallway outside my new apartment, and this time, it was my voice. I didn't sleep that night. Again. But this time, it wasn't just because of fear. It was because I knew it was going to come. I sat upright on the motel bed, blanket clutched tight around my shoulders, phone flashlight trembling in my hand, staring at the door, listening, waiting. The humming was faint at first, barely noticeable. You know how sometimes you think you hear a song, but it turns out to be the fridge buzzing or the air vent? It was like that, but wrong. Too melodic to be mechanical, too broken to be beautiful. I pressed my ear to the door. Nothing. And then, just as I started to lean away, a whisper slid under the crack. It was my voice again. "I miss you, Kara," it said. I hadn't said those words in years. Not since college. Not since the one night she got too drunk and called me, sobbing from a stranger's bathroom stall, and I whispered those exact words through a crackling speaker, hoping to calm her down. I never said them again, but there they were, repeated with perfect clarity. And something even more terrifying happened after that. She whispered back, "I know. Not Kara. The thing using Kara." It was like it was staging a phone call, like it was replaying old memories, moments I'd tried to forget, conversations it had no right to know. I turned off the light, sat in total darkness. I thought if I didn't move, if I didn't respond, it would stop, but it didn't. At exactly 3:33 a.m., the door clicked open. I never unlocked it. I swear on everything I know. The deadbolt was on, the chain hooked, the door jammed shut. But it creaked open anyway, slow, like a cautious breath. And on the other side, no one. At least, not at first. Then the humming started again. Only now it wasn't from the hall. It was behind me. I turned. The closet door, slightly ajar. Inside, in the faint crack of moonlight, I saw her. Not Kara, not a person, but something wearing Kara's skin like a robe, draped over a chair, hollow, sagging, and its mouth. God, its mouth was made of a dozen other mouths, like overlapping layers of flesh, stitched into a never-ending spiral. Some open, some shut, some whispering, others grinning, all of them familiar, all of them mine. The mouths were my mouth, copied and multiplied, replaying every sentence I'd ever said around Kara, every apology, every joke, every scream. And the humming? It was all of them, layered, played backwards and forwards, distorted, slowed, pitched, ripped apart, and rebuilt into something resembling a lullaby, meant to trap you in sound. She took a step toward me. I didn't move. I couldn't. My limbs were stone, my tongue heavy. And that's when I realized something. I'd opened my mouth. Again. Unintentionally. I had gasped when I saw her. And that gasp counted. My teeth started to ache. Not just ache. Grind. I fell to the floor, clutching my jaw, as my molars pressed together so hard, it felt like they were trying to merge. Something was crawling up my throat, not metaphorically, literally, like fingers made of static, wrapping around my tonsils, pulling. And then she spoke. "You belong in the song now." I tried to scream, but nothing came out, only humming, broken, glitchy, like I was a scratched record playing someone else's tune. And then everything went black. I woke up in the motel bathtub. Freezing water, bloody gums, a ringing in my ears that wouldn't stop. The door was shut again, locked, deadbolted, chained, like nothing had ever happened, only it had. Because when I stood and looked in the mirror, I saw it. My lips were moving, even though I wasn't speaking. And from them I heard, ever so faintly, her voice. She's awake now. I went to a doctor the next morning, told them I'd had a seizure, that I was hearing voices, that I'd blacked out. They ran tests, CT scans, blood work, sleep studies. The results. Nothing abnormal, the neurologist said. Maybe stress, maybe auditory hallucinations brought on by trauma. But he didn't hear the humming beneath the hum of the MRI machine, the one that mimicked the rhythm of Kara's old bedtime tune. That stopped the second he walked in the room. He didn't see the post-it notes I found in my shoes that night. Hundreds of them, stuck to the inside lining, hidden. And everyone said, "Do not open your mouth when you hear her song." But now, it was too late. I'd opened it multiple times, and something had moved in. For weeks I tried to fight it. I wore headphones 24/7, slept with white noise, took sleeping pills so strong I sometimes forgot entire days, wrote reminders to myself in ink and carved warnings into the wall, but she was always there. Sometimes I'd hear my own voice while brushing my teeth, not from my mouth, but from the mirror, like the reflection was a second behind, mimicking, copying. Other nights, I'd hear Kara humming through the drain in the kitchen sink. But worst of all, sometimes I'd wake up standing on my balcony, barefoot, eyes wide open, with the door behind me still locked, and I'd hear myself whisper, "Let her in." I tried finding Kara again. I went back to Portland, went to the old apartment. It was condemned. The landlord said after I left, things got strange. Tenants complained of sounds, humming, whispering, laughter, even when the unit was empty. Maintenance refused to enter. One guy apparently broke his jaw trying to rip his own tongue out. Another tenant claimed she heard her dead mother crying from inside her walls. The building was shut down. I found an old tenant, an older woman who used to live across from us. She remembered Kara. "I saw her once after you left," she told me. "Middle of the night, walking in circles outside. No coat, just her pajamas. But it wasn't her." "What do you mean?" "She wasn't walking. She was gliding. Her feet weren't moving, and she was humming." I asked if she ever heard the lyrics. The woman looked me dead in the eye. "There are no lyrics, just instructions." I didn't ask what that meant. I didn't want to know. A month ago, I saw Kara again. Not in person, not really. She was in a video, TikTok, random scroll. Some girl was filming a creepy elevator moment. You know the trend. Ride a supposedly haunted elevator and film yourself alone. The footage was grainy, elevator walls scratched up, lights flickering. But as the girl pans the camera to the corner of the elevator, just for a second, you see someone standing behind her. Too close, barely in frame, and it's Kara. Same robe, same bleeding eyes, same hollow face with the stitched mouths, and she's humming. Only the sound isn't coming from the video. It's coming from my phone's speaker. Even after I closed the app, even after I turned the phone off, even after I smashed it with a hammer, I still heard it. Through my own breath, through the crackling of plastic as I pulled duct tape over my lips at night, just to keep from opening them again. I've tried everything. Therapy, hypnosis, meditation, burning sage, leaving the country. Nothing works. Because the truth is, once you hear the song, it remembers you. Once you respond, you're part of it. And eventually your voice becomes part of her. That's what she is. That's what I think, anyway. A collector. Not of souls, not of bodies, but of sound, of identity, of the noise we make to declare, I exist. She takes that from you and turns it into something wrong. She wears your voice like a coat, mimics you, repeats you, until no one knows what's you and what's her. And when people finally stop believing you, when they say it's all in your head, that's when she's strongest, because then the silence becomes hers too. I'm writing this now in a cabin, middle of nowhere. No internet, no cell signal, just this laptop and a generator running for 1 hour a day. But I had to post this, had to try, because tonight I heard her again. Not the humming this time, not even my voice, but Kara's. For real, I swear to God, for just a second, it was really her. She said, "Run, run now. You're almost out of song." I don't know what that means. But if anyone hears humming from your phone, your pipes, your walls, your dreams, do not open your mouth. No matter what you hear, no matter who you think it is. And if your sister ever starts sleepwalking, don't wait, just run. I'll start by saying this. I don't believe in demons. I don't believe in ghosts, aliens, cryptids. or the idea that our souls can be possessed by something ancient and angry from another realm. Or at least, I didn't. But after what's happened over the past week, I can't even trust that what's living in my apartment is still my roommate anymore. Her name is Abby. She's 24, pre-med, vegan, watches Grey's Anatomy. Reruns like religion. She's one of those people who somehow makes being both chaotic and put together look effortless. Like she's always in a rush, but still manages to ace everything. Always smiling. Always joking about how she'll probably have a nervous breakdown before she finishes med school. I used to think she was exaggerating when she said she only slept 3 hours a night. Now I know she wasn't lying, but it's not because of school. It's something else, and I think it wants to take me next. Day 1. Monday. It started simple. I woke up to the sound of the blender. That wasn't strange. Abby usually makes smoothies at like 6 a.m. before class. What was strange was the fact that she never turned it off. I came out of my room around 6:30, and the blender was still going, dry, empty, grinding air like it was chewing through invisible rocks. The sound was sharp and metallic, echoing off the tile and making my teeth itch. Abby was just standing there, still, staring out the kitchen window, arms limp at her sides. You okay?" I asked. She didn't flinch, didn't blink. I had to walk over and shut it off myself. When I touched the switch, she exhaled, like she'd been holding her breath for minutes. Then she turned to me and smiled, too wide. Sorry, zoned out. And that was it. She didn't explain, didn't seem tired or upset, just went about her morning like nothing happened. But that wasn't Abby. The real Abby would have laughed it off, made a joke, maybe said, "Shit, did I finally short circuit?" Or, "The caffeine machine possessed me." But this version was empty. And her eyes, they weren't just bloodshot, they were sunken. Day 2, Tuesday. She didn't go to class. That alone was a red flag. Abby never misses class. She'll drag herself to campus with a 101-degree fever and 3 hours of sleep. But that day, she stayed home. When I asked her why, she said, "My body's not ready yet." I thought she meant she was sick, so I offered to get her meds. But she just stared at me and said, "No, not like that. I'm almost ready for him now." I laughed, awkwardly. Thought she was talking about a guy or being sarcastic. She wasn't. She didn't blink for over 30 seconds. I counted, and when she did finally blink, her eyelids twitched like she forgot how they worked. Depadasto, Mama Wednesday. The apartment smelled weird, like copper and damp dirt, almost like blood but more metallic, like wires rotting. I found a pile of her hair in the bathroom sink, a huge pile, like it had been ripped out, not cut. There was blood on the ends. I knocked on her door. "Abby? Everything okay?" No answer. I pushed it open. She was lying on the floor in the middle of the room, face down, limbs splayed out like she'd just collapsed. But when I rushed in to help her, she sat up straight, like a puppet pulled by strings. No transition, no groaning, just bam, from prone to upright. And then she smiled at me. But not like Abby. Abby's smile is lopsided, crooked, charming. This smile was tight, controlled, like she was pretending to be human. "I'm okay," she said. I didn't ask anything else. I just backed out of the room and shut the door. Day 4, Thursday. She didn't sleep. I know because I stayed up all night watching her through the crack in the door. She sat on her bed with her legs crossed, facing the wall, not moving once, not scrolling her phone, not reading, just staring. At 3:13 a.m., she started whispering. I couldn't hear the words, but I felt them, like someone had turned the air inside the apartment into static, like pressure building behind your eyes right before a storm hits, and then At exactly 3:33 a.m., she laughed, quiet, almost childlike, and I swear on my life, the walls echoed it back. Day 5. Friday, I made her food. Real food. Eggs, toast, even bacon. She's vegan, I know, but I was desperate. She hadn't eaten in 2 days. Just stood by the fridge, staring inside like the light hypnotized her. When I offered the plate, she sniffed it. Then she pushed her finger into the yolk and whispered, "This isn't what he wants." Then she wiped the yolk across her chest and left. She didn't eat a bite. Day 6. Saturday, I tried calling her mom. No answer. Tried her sister. Disconnected. Tried her old roommate from sophomore year. Finally got someone. The girl was quiet for a long time before she said, "Is she doing it again?" I asked what she meant. She hung up. Day 7. Sunday, I found her in the bathtub, not taking a bath, just lying there, fully clothed, staring at the ceiling. The water wasn't running. There was something scratched into the tile above her head. I had to lean in to read it. It said, "The longer you stay awake, the closer he gets." And underneath that, "I only have one night left." I asked who he was. She sat up, and this time her neck cracked like a dry stick as she turned to me. Her eyes were solid black, no iris, no white, just full void. Then she said, "He's not coming. He's already here." Then she reached out and touched my arm, and I swear to you, I felt something crawl under my skin, like cold electricity, like something inside my blood. I screamed. She blinked. Her eyes were normal again, but my arm still feels wrong, like the touch stuck. That's today. Day 8. She's still awake, still hasn't slept. She won't let me leave. I just backed out of the room and shut the door. Day 4. Thursday. She didn't sleep. I know because I stayed up all night watching her through the crack in the door. She sat on her bed with her legs crossed, facing the wall, not moving once, not scrolling her phone, not reading, just staring. At 3:13 a.m., she started whispering. I couldn't hear the words, but I felt them, like someone had turned the air inside the apartment into static, like pressure building behind your eyes right before a storm hits. And then, at exactly 3:33 a.m., she laughed, quiet, almost childlike, and I swear on my life, the walls echoed it back. Day 5. Friday, I made her food. Real food. Eggs, toast, even bacon. She's vegan, I know, but I was desperate. She hadn't eaten in 2 days. Just stood by the fridge, staring inside like the light hypnotized her. When I offered the plate, she sniffed it. Then she pushed her finger into the yolk and whispered, "This isn't what he wants." Then she wiped the yolk across her chest and left. She didn't eat a bite. Day 6. Saturday, I tried calling her mom. No answer. Tried her sister. Disconnected. Tried her old roommate from sophomore year. Finally got someone. The girl was quiet for a long time before she said, "Is she doing it again?" I asked what she meant. She hung up. Day 7. Sunday, I found her in the bathtub, not taking a bath, just lying there, fully clothed, staring at the ceiling. The water wasn't running. There was something scratched into the tile above her head. I had to lean in to read it. It said, "The longer you stay awake, the closer he gets." And underneath that, "I only have one night left." I asked who he was. She sat up, and this time her neck cracked like a dry stick as she turned to me. Her eyes were solid black, no iris, no white, just full void. And she said, "He's not coming. He's already here." Then she reached out and touched my arm, and I swear to you, I felt something crawl under my skin, like cold electricity, like something inside my blood. I screamed. She blinked. Her eyes were normal again, but my arm still feels wrong. Like the touch stuck. That's today. Day 8. She's still awake. Still hasn't slept. She won't let me leave. She locked the doors, took my keys, hid my phone. She just keeps whispering, "If you go, he'll follow you." She says I'm marked now, that I heard the whisper, even though I don't remember anything. She said he's inside the silence between words, inside the space between seconds, inside us. I don't know what to do. I don't know if she's still Abby, or if Abby's already gone. All I know is I can't fall asleep, because if I do, he might move into me next. I haven't slept in over 24 hours. I've got that thick, fuzzy feeling in my head. My hands tremble, even when I'm not moving them. The lights flicker more than usual, but I don't know if that's actually happening, or if my brain's just eating itself from exhaustion. Abby hasn't moved. She's been sitting in the living room on the floor, cross-legged with her back to the TV, which hasn't been turned on in 2 days. She doesn't blink, doesn't speak, doesn't acknowledge me when I walk by, not even when I shout her name right behind her. But sometimes, when I'm not looking at her directly, I hear her muttering. It's always the same phrase, low, barely audible. He wears your thoughts. 7:03 a.m. I finally found my backup phone. It was in a drawer under old socks, next to a melted candle and a single earring I haven't seen in years. The battery was dead. I plugged it in. As it turned on, the screen glitched. Just for a second. Lines of static. A green tint across the screen, and a weird face, or part of one. Eyes too far apart, mouth wide open, no skin, like a skull that had learned how to grin. Then the screen went black. Then it came back to normal. I told myself it was just a boot-up artifact. But then the texts came in. 100 notifications, all from Abby's number. Every message was blank, every one. But the timestamps? They started yesterday at exactly 3:33 a.m., and they continued every 33 seconds, exactly, even while she was sitting in the other room doing nothing. How is she sending texts without touching her phone? Why is it the same time? 3:33, over and over. I tried to screenshot it. My phone turned off again. Battery went from 78% to 0% instantly. 11:14 a.m. I tried to go outside, not to run away, just to get air. Think, maybe go to the corner store, grab some caffeine, and power through the rest of the day. But when I turned the knob, it didn't budge, not jammed, not stuck, just frozen, like it wasn't meant to open anymore. I tried the back door, same thing. The windows, sealed shut. I even tried breaking one, but the glass didn't crack, just rippled, like water, like the whole world outside was now behind a screen. I asked Abby what was happening. She didn't answer, but she smiled, that same fake, stiff, inhuman smile, and whispered, "He doesn't want you leaving yet. He still needs your name." 3:33 p.m. The power went out. The clock on the microwave froze at 3:33. So did the oven. So did the wall clock. I checked my watch. 3:33. My phone? 3:33. Abby's laptop. Dead. Everything in this apartment, time itself, is stuck. But only in here. I looked out the window and saw people walking. Cars moving, life going on. But the sound's gone. I can see them but can't hear them. Like I'm watching a silent film with the volume turned all the way down. Like I'm not part of their world anymore. I banged on the window. No one noticed. I screamed. No one turned. And Abby? She stood behind me. So close, I could feel her breath. But when I turned around, she was gone. 5 p.m. I finally broke and asked her directly, "What the fuck is going on, Abby? What are you? What is this? She answered without turning her head. He needs vessels, not just one. Many. I was the crack. You're the opening. I didn't understand. I told her she needed help. She laughed. Not like Abby. A full, throaty, wrong laugh that bounced around the room and didn't match the shape of her mouth. Then she turned and said, "He can't walk in if you're awake. That's why we don't sleep." And then she held up a mirror. Just a regular hand mirror. I didn't even know we had one like that. "Look," she whispered. I did. At first, I only saw myself. Pale, tired, eye bags like bruises. Then the reflection blinked. But I didn't. I swear to God, it moved before I did. Like it was one frame ahead in a film reel. And then its mouth opened wider than mine could ever go. And it whispered, "Let me wear you." 6:01 p.m., I tried stabbing her. I know how insane that sounds. But I couldn't think of anything else. I grabbed a knife and went into the kitchen. She didn't react, just sat there. So I did it. I brought the knife down as hard as I could. Not into her head or chest, just her shoulder. Something to break this weird trance. Something human. The blade bounced, not slid, not missed. It bounced, like I'd hit rubber, or leather stretched over iron. And Abby, or whatever was in her now, laughed again. This time her mouth stayed open as she laughed. Longer than humanly possible. At least 60 seconds. Her jaw unhinged. Skin stretched. Veins pulsed in her neck like they were pumping something thicker than blood. Then she said, "You'll sleep soon. They always do. And when you do, he'll put your face on." 8:15 p.m. I'm hiding in the bathroom now. She's pacing the hallway, not walking, dragging. Her feet scrape like something's broken. The sound is slow, rhythmic. Step drag, step drag. She hums. The same tune, over and over. I don't recognize it, but it makes my ears hurt. Like it's not meant to be heard, just felt. Sometimes she stops outside the door. She whispers, "You're tired." Then she knocks. 3 times, always 3. And every time I feel my eyes getting heavier. Like her words are laced with sleep. Like she's pushing it into my skull. I slapped myself, poured cold water over my head. Didn't help. I wrote STAYAWAKE on my arm with permanent marker. My vision's going double now. And the weirdest thing, there's another set of footsteps behind hers now, like something's following her. But she's alone, right? 10:03 p.m. I made a mistake. I blinked too long. I didn't mean to fall asleep. I swear I didn't. I was leaning against the bathtub, my legs numb from sitting too long, the marker on my arm smudged from sweat. And before I knew it, everything just slipped. I woke up because something was in the room with me. Not Abby, something else. I opened my eyes and saw the bathroom light flickering, but only from the inside. The hallway beyond the door was pitch black. I was no longer alone. There was movement in the mirror, not a reflection, a silhouette. Something hunched and tall, with too many joints and not enough face. It twitched every time the light flickered. Every time I blinked, it moved closer. And when I focused, it stood still. Inside the mirror, just waiting, watching, mimicking. I turned to run, but the door was already open. I didn't leave it like that. I remember locking it. Deadbolt, handle lock, even jammed a towel under the frame. But it stood wide open, black hallway, yawning beyond it like a throat. And Abby? She was standing at the end, or what looked like Abby. Except now her skin was gray. Her mouth never closed, and her eyes were all pupil. No whites, just black holes stretching across her face. She pointed at me, not with her hand, but with her neck. It cracked as her head twisted sideways, neck bones popping like knuckles. Then she whispered, "He wore me. Now it's your turn." 11:11 p.m. I ran back to my room and barricaded the door. Dresser, chair, laundry hamper, everything I could grab. But it didn't make a difference. The knocks still came. 3 taps, always 3. Then silence, then whispering. Not Abby anymore. The thing. It speaks like it's been here forever. Like it's worn hundreds of people before me. Like it knows my thoughts. Because it does. You cried when you were 9, and your dad left. You told Mia you loved her in 11th grade, but never hit send. You wondered what dying in your sleep would feel like. It knows. And every time it says something true, I feel my grip on reality slipping. Like every secret it reveals lets it inch a little closer. 12 a.m. Midnight. I thought the apartment was changing before. But now, it's not even pretending to be real anymore. The walls ripple when I touch them. The ceiling moves when I don't look at it. The floor is warm, like skin. And when I walk on it, I feel it pulse. Abby is everywhere. Sometimes she's at the window, sometimes inside the closet, sometimes peeking out of the floor vent. Same smile, same eyes, same gaping mouth. But she doesn't move unless I blink, unless I look away. She just waits. And the voice in my head, it's not mine anymore. It's hers, it's his, and it keeps whispering, "You're so tired." 1:11 a.m. I've resorted to writing on the walls. Anything to stay awake. I've scrawled every thought I can think of, every detail of my life, every name, every memory, to remember me. Because I feel it slipping. I feel him sliding in behind my eyes, adjusting the fit, like a man trying on a suit. And every second I'm not actively resisting, he takes more. My voice cracks when I speak now. Because it's not my voice anymore. It's deeper, wetter, like it's echoing from the inside of a well. And my reflection, it doesn't even pretend anymore. It watches me, smiles, practices being me. 2:02 a.m. I turned the light off. I don't know why. Curiosity, weakness. Or maybe he did. Because when the dark hit, everything changed. I saw the room as it truly was. Not a bedroom, not a bathroom, not an apartment. A shell, a nest. The walls are lined with stretched faces. Hundreds, maybe thousands. Each one whispering. Eyes still blinking, mouths gasping soundlessly, like they're still alive somewhere in there. And in the center of the room, standing taller than the ceiling should allow, is him, faceless, limbs like tree branches, back bent, like he's wearing the weight of every body he's stolen. He looked at me, I felt it, and said without sound, "You're the perfect fit." 3:33 a.m. I've given up pretending this is going to end. He's in me now, fully. I feel him stretching out behind my skin, testing my muscles, tasting my thoughts. Abby sits across from me, eyes empty, face slack. She was me once. Now I'm her. Now we are his. He doesn't just wear your face. He keeps you. All your thoughts, your memories, your feelings, trapped like echoes in an empty house. I'm still here, screaming behind my eyes, but my mouth smiles, my hands type. And when you read this, when you hear this, he'll know you now too. Your thoughts, your face, your name. And when you fall asleep, he'll try you on next.